So we're going to get started on the pond cleanup today, but before we start on that, we got to head down and fix a little spot of the fence. I'll show you guys the new horse and the reason why we're fixing the fence. So I'm going to bring you guys over here and show you Cricket, the newest member of the family. So there she is. She's a blue roan. She's very young, and that is part of the reason why we've got to fix this fence. So if you can see right here, these little insulators for the top wire are all broke off and the wire's missing, and the second wire is super loose. So we put her in this lot the other day when we got her home, and at one point we let all the horses out and they went all the way down to the other end of the property. We think she just got nervous because she thought all the horses were, leaving her and going away. She grew up in a large herd of horses. So she jumped the fence and she got out. We're not really, holding that against her. She's young. This is probably the first time she's ever been away from horses. So the insulators broke on all these T-posts, and then the little end loops that go around our big post are broke. So I can reuse the main wire and our little tensioners and just throw some new end loops and insulators on, and we should be good to go. So right here's our little end loop that broke. So we're going to slide the broken one out. You can see right there, it just broke the wire. I just got to strip the coating off of the ends of these end loops so that I can slide them back into the turnbuckles. Then we'll tighten her back up, throw the new insulators on, and she'll be good as new. And there we go. It only took, probably 20 minutes or so, but you can see we got our top wire back on. We got all 5 wires back up, all our insulators on. We can turn the power back on. Fence is hot, and hopefully everything will stay up this time. We put another horse back in there with her. Like I said, I think she just got a little nervous. She's over there eating some hay right now. I think she just got a little nervous. She thought everybody was... All right. I think she just thought everyone was getting too far away and just got nervous and kind of freaked out and jumped the fence. But this particular fence, we used all components from Ram Fencing. As you can see, it's really nice on stuff like this. If something were to happen and it does break, it's a pretty simple fix. The top wire itself didn't break. It just broke at those end loops. So I just threw some new end loops on, some new insulators, and we're good as new. So now that we got that out of the way, we're going to head down to the pond. I'm going to start cleaning up some of those trees. My son is dying to chop down some of those old dead cedar trees, so he'll probably be down there just chopping away at whatever he can find, and I'm going to try to start getting this pond to look a little bit better. All right, so I think I'm going to start on this jumbled mess. The pond is right here. So I think I want to start on this jumbled mess. I want to try to get this main tree right here out. There's a little dead cedar tree kind of back up there on the high side. So I'm going to bring the tractor down. It's sitting right over there. I'm going to bring the tractor down and drag that cedar out of the way so that I can stand uphill from this tree when I go to start cutting it. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to probably come up here. Since it's off the ground, I'm going to go ahead and throw a chain around it, and I'll probably try to cut it somewhere right here, because that stump's pretty big. I don't have a huge tractor, and I'm pulling it up a steep hill. So I want to try to cut that stump off and get the stump out of here in a manageable size, and then we'll start working on all of that. Well, I think the hard part is done. We got that stump out of here. I did end up having to cut it in half. Where I originally cut it, I was hoping I could get that out, but my tractor just wasn't big enough. It didn't have the weight, and the ground's so loose here, I was either just spinning or it was picking the back of the tractor up. So I ended up having to cut that stump in half, but we got it out of here. Now, for the rest of this tree, right here, it seems to be pretty solid. So I think I'll do like normal. I'll try to get as much firewood out of it as I can. What I think I want to do is I'm going to start cutting this into 4-foot sections. 4-foot sections I know will be small enough to where I can manage that with the tractor. And then when I split it into 16-inch rounds for firewood, that'll give me 3 even rounds. So I think that is my next step. I am not a logger, so I can't just eyeball it. So I'm going to grab the tape measure. I'm going to measure this out start marking my 4-foot marks, and then like I said, I'll start cutting this into 4-foot chunks, and we'll just keep chipping away trying to get this thing out of here. So I got the main portion of this log cut into my 4-foot sections. I still got all of the top down here to get picked up, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the tractor down a little bit closer, and I'm just going to take these, throw them on the forks, and one by one take these chunks back up to the top. I'm not going to bore you guys with just doing the same thing over and over, so I'm going to take all these up to the top, and then I'll show you what all we got. So it's the next day. After I got all those big chunks brought up here, my son wanted to go get all of his little cedar trees that he cut down. It was kind of cool watching him do it. He took his axe out and he actually went out and chopped these little trees down. I let him know which ones to take. They were the trees that they were hidden underneath like a big oak tree or something and were just never really going to grow. So he had fun taking them out, and then I'll flip you guys around, I'll show you his little wood pile. So this is just what's left of the cedar from that tree that we cut down off of the fence, and then my son has his little bitty pile. He loves cutting these little bitty pieces of cedar, and I mean, these things are tiny. Here, you can see one in comparison to the size of my hand, but he likes splitting these little bitty pieces. He thinks this is the best firewood there is, and then he's got the rest of his trees. He was pretty tired by the time he cut everything down and split these, so he's saving the rest for another day. But there's his little stash. So over here you can see these are those big 4-foot chunks of that big red oak that I cut down. These things are pretty big and heavy. These over here, they average about 24 to 26 inches in diameter. That bigger piece that was closer to the trunk is closer to around 28 to 30 inches. But we've got some pretty big, solid chunks up here. What I did, that big part of the trunk, it was just covered in dirt and debris, and I didn't want to keep running the chainsaw through it. So I actually threw it over here on that stump that we're burning out, and that's all that's left after burning all night last night. I'll throw up a picture and I'll show you guys. I took all that cedar that was on the fence and just threw it all on, stacked it all up. And I've got most of this stump burnt out. I know it's kind of hard to see. I'd get over there and show you, but that's still pretty hot. I said 4 foot wide at one point. It might be bigger. This was a massive stump, but we're getting pretty close to having it all burn out. So getting all of those big chunks was the hardest part, just because I wasn't able to get the tractor all the way down to them, but I was able to use my little log roller and kind of situate them enough to where I could get a chain around them, drag them out enough to where I could get them on the forks, and then brought them up here. So now I'm going to try to start getting all of the limbs out. I think most of the limbs I'll be able to get a chain or a strap around it and at least drag it out of that little hole, and then I can cut it up and haul it away from there. I might, on the lower side, clear a couple of the little trees on that side just to get me an access point down on that side. And I need to do that anyway because at some point we're going to build a cross fence on that side of the pasture that's going to go right through there. So I'm going to have to clear a little bit of an opening for that fence. So it'll kind of be a dual purpose little entry point. It'll help me get all that brush and stuff out of there, and then that'll be where we build our fence at some point. But I've got to run and get a load of hay real quick, and then as soon as I get back, we'll head back down to the pond and we'll start getting all those limbs and treetops out of there. So we're back down here at the pond, and I'll show you guys what I ended up doing after trying to get all those big chunks yesterday. So I threw a bunch of firewood in the carryall. I had a couple little stacks up in the yard that I needed to move anyway, so I threw it in here to help give us a little extra weight, because as I get farther down the hill and dragging this stuff out, it's gonna get farther and farther away from the tractor. So I wanted to add a little bit of weight in here so that I can try to get those pieces drug out of there in larger sections to minimize how many trips it's going to take me to get all that stuff out of there, because it's not easy. It's very deceiving how steep this hillside is, but it's super steep. So went ahead, threw some firewood in there to give me some weight, grabbed some tow strap, come along, a big ratchet strap just in case. I think these limbs, if I need to, I could throw the come along or the strap around it. That's a 10,000 pound ratchet strap, so I think I could anchor off to one of these trees and kind of maneuver stuff and get it a little closer to the tractor if I need to. But that's what I'm going to do for today. I'll flip you guys around and I'll show you what I think is going to be my game plan for getting this out of here. So here are some of the big limbs that are left. Right here where the forks are where those big chunks came out of yesterday, and this is about as close as I can get. I've got this big tree right here next to the tractor, and I really can't get any closer unless I were to fold down my rollover bar, but I definitely don't want to do that on the steep hill. So I think I'm going to start over here with these two limbs. I think I can drag those straight out in one piece. This big one right here, I've got some of the limbs cut off over here. It's still connected to that one on the ground. Mostly just because I didn't want to dig my chainsaw into the ground. But I'm going to start over here, get them drug out, and then I'm going to try to drag that piece out and just get everything I can with it. I don't know how well you can see it. There's a little stump right here. There was a tiny tree that had been knocked down. You can see the top of it right there. But I'm hoping I can drag that stuff kind of up over that stump fairly easy, but we will find out. So I'm going to get everything hooked up and we're going to try to start dragging this stuff out. So that is all of the large pieces up and out of here. I think that's all I want to drag out of here for right now, because that's a ton of wood. I don't want to just drag all this stuff out here and then just stack it up over by the shop. So I'll work on all of that I've got out of here. I'll get it all cut up, split up, and put away, and then we'll come back down on the next day or the next round, and we'll work on all this smaller stuff. The other reason I think I'm going to stop dragging all that stuff out for now is because I think that is all that I want to drag that direction. I think everything else I'm going to take the other direction. Like I'd mentioned, we'll go ahead and get an idea of where we're going to build that cross fence I talked about. We'll create an opening for that fence and then also use that opening to try to get the rest of this stuff out. The rest of this stuff is small enough, it's very manageable. If I had to, I could cut this stuff up into pieces and actually carry it out. It's not so big that I would need the tractor like the pieces that you just saw. On that one piece, that stump that I mentioned did give me a little bit of trouble. And then on the other one, there's these two little cedar trees. I'll flip you guys around and show you what happened. So there's this little cedar tree and that little cedar tree, and one of those limbs went right in between it. And that limb kind of curved in an S shape perfectly. I was hoping I could drag it out and the limb would roll and come out, but it wedged itself right there and right there. You can see where it took the bark off of it. It wedged itself in there, so I ended up having to cut that one in half and drag it out. No big deal. But there's nothing wrong with these two little cedars, so I didn't feel like cutting one of those cedar trees to drag it out. I figured it'd be easier just cut that piece in half and get it out. But it's already a lot more open down here. It looks a lot better. But yeah, right down there, I think, is where I'll cut a little access point and get the rest of this stuff drug out that direction. Yeah, I'm going to keep chipping away at all of this stuff that's on the back side of the dam of the pond. There are still some trees. You can see little pieces laying in the pond, but it's cold, and I don't really feel like digging in the water when it's cold. The feel-like temperature this morning was 18 degrees, so I'm not real fond of digging in water in 18 degrees, but I'm going to keep chipping away slowly on all the stuff on the back side of the pond dam, and then once we get all that cleaned up and it warms up a little, we'll get everything out of the pond. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. The cows come down earlier while I was down here messing around and checked it out, got a drink. We've actually got, I don't know if you can see it, we've actually got a little bit of ice on the edge of the water. It was pretty cold last night. But yeah, I think this is going to be, we want to just kind of clean this up and just make it a nice little area. Me and my wife had even talked about maybe even putting a little bench somewhere over there where we could just come down and sit out here and enjoy all the birds out here and, you know, just have a nice little place to come relax. But yeah, we're going to slowly keep getting all this stuff cleaned up. I've got that tree right there was probably the hardest one that I'm going to have to deal with just because of how big it was and how steep of a slope it was. And I say that's relative to me and my scenario because the size of my tractor and just what I've got to work with. But that was by far going to be the hardest part. Everything from here is just going to be time consuming and taken, you know, piece by piece, but we'll get there. I'm going to go ahead, all those limbs that I just drug out, I just drug them out. I don't know if you guys could see it in that last view, but I just drug them out to where they're out in the open now. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing. I'll cut them into, I might do 4-foot sections again. Just it's an easy, manageable size for my tractor, but I'll get those limbs cut up. All those like brushy little tree tops, I'm stacking up a bunch of that. I'll have a big bonfire at some point and burn all that. But I'll get all those limbs cut up, get it all hauled up to the top. And then I'm going to have a lot of bucking and splitting to do. But I think it'll give us quite a bit of good firewood. I've cut enough wood this winter to where I've probably got enough firewood for a couple years now, but it'll be good. Just kind of keeps me out here and keeps me going. But I appreciate you guys following along for day one of this project cleanup. And we're going to keep chipping away. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys. So here's what we've got so far out of that big red oak tree. All of this is the stuff that I intend on splitting. I brought it right up here just because we do still have that little fire pit we're using. I think this piece over here, it's kind of nasty and knotty and rotten, so I think I'll just split it up and throw it on the fire. And then out there, way out there in the pasture, you guys saw where I put all of the treetops. Yeah, you can see them right out there. I'm just stacking up all those treetops. That's from down by the pond that we were working on today and that cedar tree that we pulled off the fence the other day. It's just all the tops. Like I said, I'll light all that on fire and have a nice bonfire at some point. I've just found, for me personally, that's the quickest and easiest way for me to clean up these trees. What I intend on splitting, bringing up here by the shop, I can cut it all up and split it right there if I want. And then all those tree tops, I'm not gonna mess with them. So Jules is saying hi. All those tree tops, it's just easy for me to just stack them all up out there together and then set it on fire. She's being needy today. But it's super cold, super windy today, so I don't know how much of this I'll cut and split today, but that's going to wrap up today's video for part 1 of that pond cleanup. And then, like I said, I think the next time we go back down there is when we will, they're all coming. They think they're going to get fed. I think the next time is when we're going to pick out the spot where we want to build that cross fence, and then, like I said, we'll open that up and then use it to get the rest of that out the other direction. So that is what we've got for today. I appreciate you guys hanging out, and we'll see you on the next one.